How do you even start learning English at school? Like the grammar probably.
Yeah. There's some pronunciations that I don't understand why, and that's what my mom did. She was my grammar teacher because whenever I said something wrong or my dad said something wrong, she corrected us.
Is there still something that challenges you in English?
So if someone says you want pop, just, let's pop. British, I think they tend to cut the words off. So
this is how it sounds. In the
Yeah.
States, is it a thing to watch European movies or any other movies apart from American ones?
Because they don't want to read subtitles.
Mm.
I have to read?
So yeah, just briefly introduce yourself. Why are you here in Ukraine? And shortly.
Yeah, well, my name is Justin. I'm from the US, and I've lived in Ukraine almost 5 years now. I believe what brought me to Ukraine is a passion for youth and to see them know their purpose and that they're appreciated. So I joined a missionary team here in Ukraine, in Vinnytsia, and part of what we do is we visit different orphanages in this oblast. Spend time with the kids, celebrate different days, and occasionally, like this coming weekend is Easter, so we'll go speak about the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
And how do people react when they see you? Because we don't have many Americans here, right? So how can you observe the reaction?
Well, the kids' reaction is great. For me, their first reaction is kind of they're uncertain or shy, and then we become best friends. They think it's pretty cool that an American would come visit them, and so it's a very warm response, at least from the kids that I get. From people in the city, they, I think, want to know where I'm from usually, what country. But when people hear me speak English, then they tend to get more excited. So, in general, it's a warm response from the people.
And also speaking of English, how do you see people in Ukraine? Do people often understand and can communicate with you, or it's a rare thing to find somebody who speaks the language?
Yeah, unfortunately, in my opinion, it's not common.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all know that.
So, even in businesses at the government level, it does happen sometimes, but generally I just try to speak in Ukrainian.
So you have time to learn it, right?
Yeah.
We will talk about you speaking Ukraine, but first I would like to ask you about English. So because we're all Ukrainians, so most of us we start learning English from school, but a lot of us don't realize or maybe don't think about that you also learn English at school, right? not from the zero, but still.
Yeah.
And how was it at school? Like, did you like the lessons? Was there something difficult? How do you even start learning English at school? Like the grammar probably.
Yeah. Well, you start ABCs, you sing the song ABC, do word association, you begin to write in the basic form, and then in the cursive form, then you begin to read. And I think that's probably my favorite part of learning English.
Reading.
Was reading. Yeah. That's where I learned different words.
But by the way, because in Ukrainian or Russian language, or different languages as well, you pretty much read as you see. But in English, spelling is a tricky thing. So like as I see, there are not really specific rules of how you read it, right? You just have to remember a lot of words and a lot of sounds. Was that a challenge to remember, as many words as possible, or was there a technique or something?
Well, our teacher was our example. So for different words, maybe with silent letters, or in different situations where the word sound changed, that's where our teacher would just be helpful. Yeah, there's some pronunciations that I don't understand why, but I think what does help me is English is formed from a collection of other Latin-rooted languages, and that's kind of how our country is a bunch of immigrants, and we're all talking to each other over hundreds of years. So yeah, you have some French-influenced words, German, Spanish, and so you're trying to make sense of those languages within your own language. So sometimes that's a reason why it may not sound how it looks.
Yeah, exactly. Was there anything maybe later, after ABC and stuff, after some elementary stuff, was there something that, was difficult for you? Was something, grammar rules, tenses, whatever?
Yeah, of course. I mean, grammar is like, I think in every language it's one of the more difficult things. But I think when trying to learn grammar, if you learn it technically, for me, it made it more difficult. But if you just are corrected as you speak, I think that's what helps. And that's
in practice.
And that's what my mom did. She was my grammar teacher, because whenever I said something wrong, or my dad said something wrong, she corrected us.
Yeah, I have the same situation in my family. Like my mom would always correct us. Now I also joined the club, so I always try to correct in Russian. So yes, this is how it works. As I believe, as you speak, yes, in practice, this is how it is. Let's say better learned. Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we had some difficulties at school with grammar. Is there still something that challenges you in English? I don't know, idioms or grammar, anything that still can give you a challenge sometimes.
I think it's understanding the different dialects. How people are pronouncing words.
That's what I wanted also to ask you. Yeah.
So if it's in the U.S., someone who grows up in the New England states, which is like from Pennsylvania upward, is much different than someone from the southern states. The southern states tend to draw out their words really longly.
Well, you're in the heart of the Bible Belt. We believe in family. We believe in Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
I don't even like it. When I see them on TV, I turn it off. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Long statements.
Southern accent.
Yeah, and the New Yorkers are more like firm. To the
I think
point.
they're more like of a standard English. I don't know. Yes. So.
Yeah. More of the standard, you might say.
Well, I would believe so. Yes.
Yeah. And even as you go out west, Midwest, you get more local phrases added to the conversation. So, for example, the word soda, which we say in the East Coast, I think in the Midwest they call it a pop.
Pop. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if someone says you want pop, and you just, what's pop?
Yes, this is also, you said pop, and I remembered it watching in movies. But for me, the most difficult dialect would be, or accent would be Texas. Because I remember watching a movie and there were some, I believe, actors from Texas, and I just switched it up to Russian because I was like, no, I can't, I just can't, because there is something about this accent that gives me a challenge. Yeah. So, but yes, we know that in America there are a lot of accents and dialects. What about if we talk out of America? So I would say, let's say English-speaking countries, Great Britain, yes, where you have Scotland as well, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and also what else we have? African accents, Australian,
India.
Yes, India. That is another topic, I believe. But yes, what other accents do you find, let's say, difficult to comprehend?
Well, I work with an Australian guy, So I can understand him like he would speak normal English. I think. British, I think they tend to cut the words off. So they
This is how it sounds.
Yeah, and I can understand them, but I have to really pay attention, and then like as you go up to Ireland, Scotland, the people I've heard that have that accent, they kind of curl. I don't know how else to describe it. They curl some words.
Yes, I think that they also mix it with their local language, and maybe sometimes they forget that this is not an English word, because I had experience talking to Scottish, and yes, it was difficult to understand, because sometimes I couldn't understand whether it's English or not. So apparently it was. Yes, but it gave me some trouble. But in general, British English, American English, a lot of people have questions about it. So because I believe sometimes it's not only about accent, but it's about dialect as well. Like sometimes you use different words.
Yeah, and that's a big part of the difference between I think British English and American English. I think it's the word, like we call them French fries. They call them chips.
Yes.
We have chips, but they're like, potato chips.
Other chips, yes. This is what we also call chips. Yeah.
And then they have a breakfast dish called bangers and mash, which I think is sausage and I think it's potatoes. So it's like trying to understand these terms combined with the accent. It can make it frustrating, or it can make it really, really interesting for the person.
Yeah, I remember I was in the States, and then I asked a guy, and I said flat, and he was like, "What's flat?" And that was apartment, what I meant. But apparently in the States you don't use a lot this word flat.
No.
Apartment, yeah. Flat would be only the adjective that means flat, like the table is flat.
Yeah, it's more European, or used in Europe, I think.
Yeah, he was surprised and I was surprised, because why would you be surprised? It's an English word.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, they probably would need you to explain that.
Yeah, also what I remember, I think that's a funny difference between pants and trunks, like
or trousers.
Trousers, yeah, trousers and pants. So like apparently, if I'm not mistaken, in the States, trousers are underwear. No, what is what? Like, if I say trousers, what do you think of?
Wow. I was thinking of like men's suit pants, but I don't know if that's even right. Trousers.
But pants would be pants, like regular pants, jeans and pants.
They also say slacks.
Slacks. No, I haven't.
So slacks. I don't know if people still say this. Slacks are like a how would you call it? More not quite casual, not quite dressy. So it's like khaki pants.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So slacks, or maybe slacks and trousers. See, this is the difficult part for me. Are these?
Yeah, because then I believe that even British themselves, they start using American words, and then of course Americans use some British, and it all makes it up, and it's difficult then to separate sometimes. I also remember being in London, and I saw vocabulary or dictionary which said American to British and British to American. And that was the moment when I realized, there is supposed to be some difference. Another thing before we switch to another topic, this is a question that I didn't plan, but now I thought of it. Movies. So in America, I would say American industry, yes, movie industries is probably, if we generalize it, is the most successful. And we all watch here in Ukraine or in Russia and Europe, we all watch American movies and of course translate it, interpret it in our local languages. But in the States, is it a thing to watch European movies or any other movies apart from American ones?
So I used to work in that field, and the issue with that is they're hard to market to the American audience because they don't want to see foreign films, generally speaking.
Yeah, so they're more. Can we say that Americans are more ethnocentric in this case? Like we would like to watch.
Or egocentric, yeah.
Egocentric.
Yeah, I mean, so there was a really good film, in my opinion, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I think it was in Chinese, and the language was in that native language, and it was all subtitles.
Oh, with subtitles.
Subtitles in English. So I went into this movie. I knew what it was about, but one of the guys sat down and started. He was with his girlfriend, and as he saw the subtitles coming up, he was like, "I have to read." Like, and
it's like too much. I want to enjoy.
Yeah,
it.
so it's like that's another, another hurdle for some moviegoers is they don't want to read subtitles. And in the States, we don't normally dub in theater movies. We either subtitle or it's original language in the theater.
Oh, interesting. Because like we Ukrainians, all movies are dubbed, yes, so you can hear the voice, and very often you don't even hear the original language, yes, the original sound. You hear only, and they double a lot.
Yeah.
And the laughter and everything, so, and it's so natural. So I think it's like it's not just somebody, translates or interprets all the voices, but a lot of people, and it's like it's a whole, I don't know, like it's a whole cast, so to say, but only for interpreters. So it's a bigger thing here, but in the States apparently it's original movies, and if not, then it's subtitles. If it's subtitles, then I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. The only dub movies that were successful that I know of in the U.S. were, what's this called? It's not coming to me now. Anyway, there were these brothers from China, and they produced hundreds of kung fu movies, and they used to come on TV on Saturdays. And so all of these movies were dubbed in English. And it didn't matter because there's just so many people wanted to watch kung fu movies. So that's probably the Shaw Brothers. Movies,
but that is an old movie, yes?
Yeah, those were like 80s, 90s, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that earlier in the past, people in general, not only in the States, were, let's say, less lazy, yes? Now we have a lot to compare with, and that's why what was all right in the past, now it's like, no, I'm not watching it, like black and white movies as well. It's like,
you're right.
We'll watch it. So yeah, but that's interesting because I believe we all watch American movies, and but we never think of Americans whether they watch French movies. Well, British, I believe you don't need to double it, though we talked about some differences, but I believe you can understand that well.
Well, with British TV and film, that is more popular of the foreign films and TV series. And sometimes what will happen is, like with the show The Office, it started in Britain and was successful, and they made an American version of it. They didn't just give us the British version. They made
like there is James Bond, and what is it in the American? James Bourne, not Bourne.
Bourne, Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I could see some copies.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think it's because they thought Americans would love like an American copy rather than the original British movie, so they would still want something local?
Yeah, I think there's still a number of Americans that maybe it's changing, but they may prefer to hear their own kind of voice. So if it's a British guy talking and a bunch of British people, maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people may not have been as interested. And then also culturally, some of the jokes may not translate. Which is difficult.
That's the thing. For example, me, when I watch some movies, shows, etc. Sometimes I understand every word of a joke, but I don't get it. I don't get the sense of it, and I think it's normal because like you have your culture, you have your local celebrities, your local stories, and other stuff. And of course, it's difficult to, because I lived in the US for some time, and that's why sometimes I could get some jokes, because I kind of could, let's say, suck in this culture a little bit, and that's why some jokes are understandable. But for others, like that's why Ukrainians often say, "Oh, Americans' jokes are stupid," or "American humor is stupid," and I say, it might seem like that, and I would say that Americans would say the same thing about Ukrainian humor or Russian humor, just because it is our humor, our jokes, our perception of it. So that's why something that seems stupid to us is not stupid to you, because it's, though, I don't know, like there are a lot of stupid comedies that apparently are the most popular ones, and just because, I mean, I don't know.
That's a good point, because a lot of the jokes, I think, become like cultural references, whether it's to something like topical or something historical, then you're basing this joke off. And then just your everyday experience, in the US versus in Vinnytsia is quite different. So then your humor, the joke may not translate. It's really, that's another tough thing, like foreign films and comedies, to get a big audience for them outside of the US has always been challenging.
Yeah, humor is a challenging thing to transfer.
Yeah.
All right. Hi. No, I don't like this. How do we? So, what's up, Justin? Will you introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. Do you look at the camera? Hi. I don't know. Not surprised.
Oh, all right.
No. I look at you.
Yeah, you look at. How do we?
That's it. Already, we just didn't even start.
All right. Oh, cut it out.
And then my reaction is, oh no. But then my Ukrainian friends is like.
You happen to learn Russian and Ukrainian, more Ukrainian than Russian, or what it's like?
Сьогодні погода дуже погана, на мою думку. The longer I stay in Ukraine, the more, my mind shifts to a certain conversation.
How would you summarize English learners here, and what would you suggest?
Ask yourself if you really want to learn English. I say 20% or 25% in the class and 75% in your own time.
Some people say no, grammar is very important, but where are you in this conversation?
Grammar doesn't have to be perfect. Grammar makes it clear what you're saying.